Hi, Derek Fraser here from ColdstreamRodshop. We're going to do a couple part short video this week. We'll stretch it a little longer to show you more what we're doing on the 40 Plymouth. At this stage, as you can see, we've got the body up off the chassis. The chassis is outside underneath a tarp right now. Got jack stands and some chains and some boards kind of holding it up in the air. In retrospect, I think that if I would have put it on a rotisserie, it might have taken a lot longer to set it up, but it would have saved me time cleaning and brushing underneath. So what I've done so far is underneath it, I've gone over the entire underneath upside down with a full mask and respirator and wire wheeled the entire underneath of the car. Did that over a course of a couple days. And then what I've done is I've brushed on a coat of POR 15 under the whole bottom of the car. Now, what I'm also going to do here is I'll put some more paper down a little later, and I'm going to go over it with a couple clear coats of black paint to top coat the POR 15. Basically just trying to save it and stop it where it's at. The other thing we had to do, or we were asked to do, and I may or may not have mentioned it, he wanted me to fill up some of the holes and clean up the firewall. So I've started that process. Here was one patch that was over in that corner right there. So at first I thought I could weld up the cracked edges and whatnot and put a, weld in a circle there kind of thing, but that was just, it wasn't rusted, but it had a lot of damage to it. So I just basically chose to make another piece of metal and weld that in there. Same thing happened over on this side here. There was a piece of metal like that I had to replace here. That was a little rotted out, so I didn't try and weld that up. And then over here there was another piece, a hole to fill up there, and basically I'm working my way around right now, just filling holes up. So a couple seconds ago before the camera lady came in here, I basically made up a little template, so I'm going to make a piece of metal to fill this hole and fill all of these. I will, however, leave a couple of these grommets in these holes here for future wiring. I don't want to close up all of the holes on the firewall, but he wanted me to kind of clean it up, smooth it up, and then I'm actually going to put a little skim of body fill on all of this and then hit it with a can of clear gloss black or maybe flat black. I've got to check with them to be sure what color it is. And of course, this here section was formed just out of a piece of 18 gauge metal. I bent on the brake and then welded in. That's basically to give us clearance for the distributor. So previously, if you would have seen this, it would have just been the hole cut out to clear the distributor. Now we've got the structural piece in there kind of all welded in place. So I'm going to carry on with the firewall. I'm going to put the clear coat of black paint up underneath, and then we'll get the chassis in here, lower the body back down on the chassis and put the body bolts in place. So that's where we are. It's, as you can imagine, making those little bits of piece of metal and welding in and grinding, it's taken some time, but that's what you got to do to make it clean. Here we are. I was hoping to set the time-lapse video up, but I just didn't remember to do it. A few things we did to the body. When I had the body up, I'm not sure if I mentioned or not, put the POR 15 on the underneath of it, and then I got underneath with all covered up, and I put a couple coats of Tremclad black over the top underneath to kind of protect it. Once that was done, then I moved to the front. I'll insert some pictures, but basically there was a lot of holes here. One of which we cut in order to give the distributor clearance. So I welded up the holes. I think I was somewhere around 18 or 20 holes I welded up, ground them smooth, did a little bit of body work onto it to do it nice and smooth. And then the owner asked me just to put a coat of flat black paint on the front to kind of match the rest of the body, because he's not sure whether, I think what he's thinking about doing is basically giving it the, I don't know if you want to call it a rad, not a rat rod look, but kind of a unfinished look. He's going to clean it up, maybe buff it a little bit. And anyways, it's up to him, I guess, what he's going to do, but I think that's the current plan. So point being, we did flat black on the firewall. So the body's now down on the frame. We have brand new rubbers, brand new nuts and bolts all the way around. They're all tightened down and everything else. One thing I forgot to run earlier, but I did it before I put the body back on. I needed to hook up a vacuum line for the power brakes. So there was a port in the back of the intake manifold, just took a brass barb fitting, put that in there. Ran the hose down, put a couple zip locks onto it to make sure that nothing flopped around and everything. So got that set up for them. Just much easier to do it before you put the body on. Then on a previous episode, I talked about putting the extra steering knuckle in here and getting clearances and stuff. What I found is once I put everything in place, and I want to show you one thing I'd like to do with my steering shafts. So once I cut the steering shafts, you know, you put the set screws in, you make little marks here. I like to go over to the drill press and put like a 1/4 inch hole there, so that when a set screw goes in, it actually goes in the hole and makes a physical connection, so nothing will come loose. And then on top of that, what I like to do is I'll Loctite these. Now maybe later on somebody's going to curse me for having to undo it, but they're not going to come undone, I guess is the point. But when I hooked all of this up and then I went to the steering wheel, I realized I had too much of an angle down here on this U-joint. I think your maximum is like 36, 37, 38 degrees, and I was just enough where it started to bind. So what that essentially I had to do was take everything apart. I shortened up this shaft by 1/2 inch, and then I had to raise the bearing support, this little idler support here for the shaft up again. So made a second bracket to raise it up. So right now we're good. There's no binding, everything turns good. So I'm happy with that. And then of course the bracket, there was a bracket at the bottom of the steering column. Not sure if you can see that. You should be able to see that from the inside here. I realize this is more show and tell, kind of like with our summer videos. Camera lady might be able to see it. So there's a steering support. Yeah, kind of, you can kind of just see it there. That's in place right now. And then I put the emergency brake handle in place on the floor. So that's in, it's lined up with the emergency brake in the back. I still have to make a connection between the emergency brake and where the cables are. So still have to do that. The other thing I've left to do, sorry I'm running over to the bench here, but I realized after I took the firewall out, there was a support that actually went from the firewall here back to the dash. So I still have to take this off, weld it in, and more than likely put either 3 bolts here or 3 bolts there to put the steering, to put the dash support back in place. So I was kind of hoping this would be the last video for it. But like I said, a few more things to go. I mean, that's what happens when you're hot rodding. So gonna have to hook up the emergency brake, the dash support, and then we're gonna dummy on the front clip and the fenders. I've already made measurements. They are going to fit, but I'm gonna bolt them in place and clean up all these threads here. The radiator for this too, we were thinking about using an aluminum radiator, trying to get an aftermarket one, and essentially trying to make brackets up. So, excuse me, the radiator would actually fit along here inside this cowl, so it sits quite a ways in. One thing we realized was that the inlet and the outlet ports on the original radiator were exactly where we need them for a small block Chevy. So a friend of mine said, well, why don't you see about getting it record? So that's the avenue we're doing right now. We've got the radiator in, getting recorded at a radiator shop. So hopefully I'll get that back next week and I'll be able to show you that on the 40 Plymouth. And I think that's going to wrap it up. Just one more video after this. So that's where we are in the 40 Plymouth. Sorry I rambled a little bit there, and it's more show and tell, more descriptive stuff. But once we get into September, I'll hopefully get back to some more show as you go kind of videos. But that's it for this week. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Everybody take care.